Hey everyone, in this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a rigid body simulation in Blender. I'm breaking it up into 3 parts. Part 1 is all about setting up the scene. Part 2 covers creating the actual simulation. And Part 3 will be setting everything up for rendering. Let's get into it. Let's start by clearing the scene so we can add some new objects. When you place them, make sure to leave a bit of space between each one. Then, select all the objects and press Ctrl+J to join them into one. Move the whole group to the center of the scene. Next, go over to the little blue wrench icon, that's where the modifiers are. Click Add Modifier, go to Generate, and choose Array. Set the count to 5 and the X factor to 1.2 to give them a bit of spacing. Now, add another Array modifier. This time, set the count to 6, keep the X and Y factors at 0, and set the Z factor to 1.2. This will create a 3D cube of objects. Once that's done, press Ctrl+A to apply both modifiers. We now have a solid cube made up of multiple objects. Right-click on it and choose Set Origin to Geometry. Move it up a bit and rotate the whole cube if you like. Now let's split the cube into individual pieces. Go into Edit mode, press P, and choose Buy Loose Parts from the menu. This will separate everything, but all the objects still share the same origin, which can mess up the simulation. To fix that, right-click and choose Set Origin to Geometry. This will give each object its own origin point. While everything's still selected, press M, create a new collection, and give it a name like Shapes. All the objects will now be moved into that collection. To add a new filter to your project, just click on the little funnel icon, then turn on the arrow icon. That's the selection toggle. This lets you control which objects in your scene can be selected. Super handy when things start getting cluttered. Alright, now let's make the bowl that's going to catch all the falling objects in our simulation. Select the main collection so any new objects we add go into the right place. Now add a UV sphere. This will be our bowl. Scale it to the size you want, then press Ctrl+A and apply the scale. Select the new sphere and go into Edit mode. Press 1 on the numpad to go to front view, and switch to wireframe mode so we can easily select through the mesh. Select half of the sphere, press X, and delete the vertices. Then press A to select what's left and squash it a bit along the Z-axis using S and Z. Now deselect everything. Select just the top part of the mesh. Move it up with G, then Z, and scale it up to start shaping the bowl. When you're done, exit, Edit mode. Switch your viewport shading back to solid. Let's give the bowl some thickness. Head over to the Modifiers tab, the little blue wrench. Click Add Modifier. Go to Generate and pick Solidify. Set the thickness to something like -0.5. Check Even Thickness, and then hit Ctrl+A to apply the modifier. Next, right-click the sphere and choose Shade Auto Smooth to make it look nicer. Then, add a Subdivision Surface modifier to smooth it out, but don't apply that one yet. Last step, just to stay organized, rename the sphere to Bowl. Now we need to position the objects so they fall right into the center of the bowl. First, disable selection on the main collection by clicking the arrow icon next to it. That way, we won't accidentally move the bowl. Hit 7 on the numpad to switch to top view, then press A to select all the falling objects. And move the objects so they're centered over the bowl. And that's it for part 1. We've finished setting up the scene. Now let's move on to part 2, creating the simulation. When setting up a simulation, you might get slightly different results each time. Even small changes in the setup can make a difference. So the values I'm using here might need to be tweaked a bit if you're following along with your own simulation. Open up the Shapes collection and select the first object. Then go to the Physics tab. It's the little blue icon with a circular arrow, and enable Rigid Body. Under Type, set it to Active, and under Collisions, Shape, change it to Mesh. Now open Surface Response and set Friction to 0.7 and Bounciness to 0.9. Then go into the Dynamics section and set Damping Translation to 0.4 and Damping Rotation to 0.8. Those are the settings we want for all the falling objects. Since we disabled selection on the main collection earlier, pressing A will now select only the objects in the Shapes collection. You'll notice the first object you selected is orange. That means it's the active object, and the rest are red. Now go to the Object menu, scroll down to Rigid Body, and choose Copy from Active. This will apply the same rigid body settings to all selected objects. You can check a few to make sure the values copied over correctly. Now disable the Shapes collection and turn the main collection back on. Select the bowl, go to the Physics tab, and enable Rigid Body. Set the type to Passive. This makes it a solid object that won't move during the simulation. Under Collisions, Shape, change it to Mesh, and then go to Surface Response. Set the Friction to 0.9 and the Bounciness to 0.7. Set the end frame to 350. Then open up the Scene tab. In the Rigid Body World Settings, set the speed to 0.9 and substeps per frame to 15. Just a heads up, the higher you set this value, the longer it'll take to bake the simulation. Next, open the Cache section and set the end frame to 350, then hit Bake. This might take a little while, so I'll see you once it's done. Once the bake is finished, press the spacebar to play the simulation. If you're not happy with how it looks, click Delete All Bakes, tweak some of the values, and bake again until you're happy with the result. That wraps up part 2. Next, we'll move on to part 3, where we'll get everything ready for rendering. Let's start by adding a new plane. This will be our base for the bowl to sit on. Scale it up to a size you like, then move it underneath the bowl. Next, let's add a new camera. Now, head over to the World tab. That's the little red globe icon. Click the yellow dot next to Color. Choose Environment Texture from the menu, then click Open and pick an HDRI file. If you don't have one yet, a great place to grab free HDRIs is polyhaven.com. Split the viewport vertically so we have two panels. On the left side, set up the view exactly how you want the camera to see things. Make sure your camera is selected, then press Ctrl plus Alt plus numpad 0. This will snap the camera to match your current view. Now, zoom out a bit if needed. Switch to rendered view. Open the render tab, set the render engine to cycles, and change the device to GPU compute, only if you've got a GPU. Under sampling, set viewport min samples to 50 and render min samples to 200. Select the plane, that's our base, and create a new material. Set metallic to 1, roughness to about 0.85, and choose a light blue for the base color. Rename the material to back. Now, select the bowl and make a new material. Set roughness to 0.15, and under transmission, set weight to 1. Next, enable selection on the Shapes collection and disable it on the main collection. Open up Shapes and select the first object. Switch to the Shading workspace. Clear it and find the object you want to shade. Click New to create a new material, turn on snapping, and rename it to Shape. Set metallic to 1 and roughness to 0.1. Press Shift plus A, search for object info, and connect random to base color. Then, search for a color ramp node and drop it on that connection. Click the plus button twice to add extra control points. Click the little arrow menu and choose Distribute Stops from left. Set the colors to blue, green, yellow, and red. Change the interpolation from linear to constant. Go back to the Layout tab. Select all the shape objects. Press Ctrl+L and choose Link Materials. This will copy the material to all the selected objects. To speed up viewport rendering, press Ctrl+B and drag a box over the camera view. Enlarge the render view, hit the spacebar to play the animation, and if you're happy with it, it's time to render the animation. That's it for this short video on how to make a rigid body simulation in Blender. If you create your own simulation, tag me on Twitter or Instagram and share your animation. I'd love to see it. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.